The human heart has been an object of fascination for hundreds of years. Doctors have done enormous research about it and poets have sung praise about it. The heart is also an incredible machine. It is estimated that in the course of 24 hours, in the case of an average human being of good health, the heart pumps blood into the body an estimated 200,000 times. That's quite fantastic. And yet it is now increasingly evident that the heart too is prone to problems. And doctors will tell us that these problems are of our own making, meaning we are responsible for the poor condition of our hearts. Now that's serious. The question is, what can we do about it? What are the do's and don'ts that we should follow to ensure a healthy heart? Now, with us today in the studio to answer these and several other questions is Dr. H.V. Sardesai.
Hello.
Dr. Sardesai is one of the most widely respected and consulted physicians in Pune. He has been attending to patients and advising them for over 50 years. So, who better can we have to answer our questions? Dr. Sardesai.
Hello.
It was said in the past that heart failure, heart disease, heart attacks is something that older people, senior citizens have. But now it seems that a lot of younger people also are prone to heart attack or heart disease. Now, is this true? To what extent? And what could be the reasons for this?
Unfortunately, it is true. It's true all over the world, but much more in India. And in fact, it is identified as a problem called the Indian paradox. Paradox because vast majority of Indians are vegetarians, vast majority come from a stock which has a philosophical background. Despite that, why should heart attacks come so often and in so young people? Current research has showed that several things are contributing to that. One principal thing is rising incidence of smoking. The other is lack of aptitude for exercise. Third is our body built. As Indians, we are prone to a certain kind of obesity, fatness, which is called the android obesity, where most of the fat occurs in the abdomen as against fat accumulating in around the waist, which is a different kind of obesity. People in India have a much higher incidence of diabetes, and most of the people have now lot of mental stress. All these factors are together causing heart attacks in younger and younger people, and perhaps more alarmingly, the very first attack is fatal in 30% of instances.
Why is that? Why is it that younger people seem to die if they have a heart attack?
You see, the reason why a person dies in a heart attack is when the coronary artery, the artery that takes blood to the heart, gets blocked. There are two ways in which it gets blocked. As we get older and we age, a process of atherosclerosis begins in the arteries, which is a very slow, gradually narrowing process which may affect different arteries. Now, that is a very slow process, it will take several years. But there is another thing that can happen, and that is that the artery may have a sudden clot. The clot of blood can cause a sudden arterial occlusion. This clot occurs on a vessel wall which has been damaged, and the vessel wall gets damaged principally by what are known as oxidative stresses, that is certain chemicals in the body which damage the inner wall. The principal of them is cigarette smoke. Now, cigarette smoke damages the inner wall, so are all pollutants from the car exhausts and many other things. Suddenly a spasm of the coronary artery which can come from an emotional stress, and a person who has not been exercising and putting on weight and has a lot of mental stress, as it might happen in a business executive, and then eats very rich food which increases his cholesterol, all these factors come up suddenly and will cause clotting of the blood inside, and the very first attack itself may be very fatal.
Doctor, we are familiar with the term heart attack, that is quite popular. Yeah. Unfortunately, one sees people having that. But in medical terminology, I believe coronary heart disease is the term more appropriately used. Could you explain what exactly this means in medical terms and in layman terms?
As we said some time back, heart is a muscular pump. The pump has to keep on beating 200,000 times a day. To do this work, it has to receive sufficient nourishment and oxygen all the time. it receives this nourishment and oxygen through its own arteries. These arteries are termed coronary arteries. We have two, the right and the left. In most of us, the left one is the more dominant one. In more than 80% of people, the left coronary artery is dominant. These coronary arteries keep on perfusing blood day and night. Depending upon the work we put on the heart, more and more blood has to reach heart. When we exercise, when we run, even when we are emotionally stressed, more blood is needed by the heart, and at that time the coronary arteries have to keep on supplying blood irrespective of whatever else wherever else the demand may be.
If I may go back, in earlier part of what you were telling us, you mentioned the word cholesterol. Now, thanks to the media and even a lot of health columns in newspapers, one has heard this term. What exactly is cholesterol? Is it good for the body, or is all of it bad? What should be done to prevent its accumulation?
Cholesterol is a normal part of the human body, but every cell of human body, and there are billions and billions of them, each cell wall is made out of cholesterol. So, without cholesterol life is not possible. Cholesterol also helps us to manufacture many important hormones, certainly the male hormone, perhaps also the female hormone, definitely hormones that come from the adrenal cortex, which are called as these corticosteroids or steroid hormones, and bile salts are very important to produce, they are produced from cholesterol. However, whatever things may be good, anything in excess is always bad. So, a normal person should have a cholesterol level between 120 to 200 milligrams per 100 milliliters of the blood. When this level starts exceeding and goes over 250, it starts accumulating on the inner linings of our arteries. That is where the damage begins. There are two kinds of cholesterols. The way that it is transported, cholesterol is mostly manufactured in our liver. It is manufactured from the sugar we eat and the fat we take. Now, most of it comes from the sugar we eat, but that cholesterol is transported from the liver into each of the cell of the body by a medium called the low density lipoprotein. So, that is called as the LDL. So, this LDL protein carries cholesterol from the liver into the cell. So, into the say arterial wall, and arterial wall, after it has finished with its work, whatever cholesterol that remains sends the cholesterol back to the liver by another protein called high density lipoprotein. So, high density lipoprotein takes the cholesterol out of the cell. So, we have two kinds of cholesterols, the low density lipoprotein cholesterol, which is going inside the cells, bad for the cells, high density lipoprotein cholesterol, which is good for us because it is taking out of the cells.
So, what you are saying is HDL is good.
HDL is good.
Well, in which case the logical question would be, how can HDL be increased? Is there a way in which it can be increased, and simultaneously can LDL be reduced?
Yes, HDL can be increased by a very simple process, by simply doing what are known as dynamic exercises. LDL increases by a number of things, but we want to reduce it, and the best way of reducing LDL is also doing exercises very regularly and being very attentive to our diets. If our diets are rich, as I said just now, in sugar and also in certain types of fats, then the LDL cholesterol keeps on rising. These fats are usually fats that come from animal sources, like the yellow of the egg, the meat, the chicken. They can give us a lot of cholesterol. There is no cholesterol whatsoever in a vegetarian origin. So, vegetable oils are zero in cholesterol, but all oils which come from non-vegetarian source like butter, cream, margarine, and anything which is ultimately derived out of the animal source will have a lot of cholesterol. So, if we want to reduce our LDL, we have to be very careful in cutting down all the animal fats that we consume and take more and more of vegetable fats.
That will bring us to the question of diet, but
yes.
Just before that, since you spoke about specific oils,
yes.
Now in the media one finds a lot of advertisement going on, and a lot of manufacturers seem to have become aware of the question of cholesterol.
Yes.
So, you will have advertisements saying so and so oil, it happens mostly about oil manufacturers,
yes.
largely, that use our oil because this is cholesterol free. Some even claim, without names, that using our oil might reduce the cholesterol accumulation in your body. Now, how far are these claims really true, and where should we draw the line?
If any vegetable oil, whether it is made out of safflower, sunflower, groundnut, they are cholesterol free. There is no such vegetable oil which will contain any cholesterol, zero cholesterol in all vegetable oils. But that is perhaps not what they want us to know. They want us to know whether it contains saturated fats and unsaturated fats, because if we consume saturated fats, then whatever cholesterol we eat is easily absorbed, and therefore, if you were to take again butter, ghee, cream, not only they contain cholesterol, but if there is a food article which is rich in cholesterol like an egg for example, let us take the example of an egg which has been fried in ghee against an egg which has been fried in oil. Any oil that you take will have very low content of saturated fat, most of them will have a large quantity of unsaturated fat. The unsaturated fat will prevent absorption of cholesterol, and therefore, it is useful to us. However, there is a thing which one must know, all these unsaturated fats belong to different classes. There are omega 3 fats and there are omega 6 fats, and the ratio between omega 3 and omega 6 fats has to be maintained to maintain good health. It should be between 1:5. Omega 3 fats we get in very few vegetable things. Now, for example, we get it in green leafy vegetables, then we can get it in olive oil, which we do not unfortunately consume too much in our country, and we get it in a walnut, which also is hardly ever eaten. We get it in rajma, which is a kind of food which is not commonly eaten in Maharashtra, though it is a common item amongst Punjab, but fish oil is rich in omega 3. Whereas omega 6 fats or all other fats are omega 6 fats, like for example, take safflower oil, which is a very popularly consumed oil, thinking that by consuming safflower oil will reduce cholesterol and therefore protect our hearts, but safflower oil contains omega 6 fat. This fat, when it is broken down in our body, is converted into chemicals which are prothrombotic, that means they will cause thrombosis. So, a person who is consuming only a very rich oil, a diet which is rich in safflower oil, is very prone to get heart attacks, and the person must have a balance. Say 1/3 of the oil could be saturated like ghee, 1/3 of the oil could be safflower oil, and another 1/3 of the oil should be mohoricha tel, which is quite commonly used, and that is an excellent item, thing which could protect heart attacks.
That is about which oils could be used.
Yes.
Now, if you could move to the larger question of diet that you spoke about.
Yes.
Now, it was believed that since most Indians are vegetarians, we do not have a problem of heart attack. Now, this is not really proving true.
No.
So, when we say diet, what exactly should be included and what should be avoided, and at different ages?
We definitely need to have a very large amount of what are now called as antioxidants in our diets. Now, any green leafy vegetable, salad, fruit are very rich sources of antioxidants, and we must have plenty of them. We should have a lot of cereal in our diet, because cereals also give us lot of what are called as complex carbohydrates, which are extremely useful to keep our cholesterols down. We should avoid butter, ghee and cream in excess, but a certain amount is necessary, because that gives us vitamin A, vitamin D and other fat soluble vitamins which come with that. We should try and restrict the amount of sugar we take, because the amount of sugar we take has only one purpose in the body, and that is to harm us. It has no other useful act at all. It will make us gain weight, it will make us high cholesterol, it will damage our teeth, it will cause lots of problems. So, it is best to avoid taking sugar. Jaggery is slightly better than sugar, but it is more or less the same. I mean, we should get into a habit of not consuming too many sweets at all. Salt in moderation is necessary and desirable, but taking too much of salt is not desirable for several reasons. One of the effects of salts is not popularly known, that when we consume salt, with every molecule of salt that is absorbed from the intestine, a molecule of sugar is absorbed in the intestine. So, a person who is say a diabetic or wants to lose weight, it's no use just cutting off his sugar and starch, he must also restrict salt in his diet, because if you were to take a lot of salt, then whatever sugar he is eating will all get absorbed. So, we say our total calories should be restricted, proteins could be whatever we take, fats we must have a proper kind of combination of omega 3 and omega 6 fats, reduce the starch to the extent of calories that are needed, take complex carbohydrates, meaning thereby lot of salads, lot of fruit and cereals in our diet should be in plenty. Avoid eating refined cereal grain, like for example, if you were to use bread which is made in a bakery, then it is made out of a refined kind of a maida, which is not desirable. It is better to eat a roti which is made out of ordinary wheat flour, in which it has a much lesser extraction than what refined flour would contain. That is the main thing.
That is about intake.
Intake.
Now, the other thing that is always said is that a healthy heart lives in a healthy body.
Right.
And what is prescribed for a healthy body is exercise.
Right.
So, what exactly is the role of exercise? That is one part. And the second is, nowadays one has so many mandarins of exercise. You have the yoga experts, you have aerobics in their special suits, and you have people who say, no, no, you must run, that is the only thing to do, etc. Now, what would you say is the role of exercise, and which specific exercise or combination of exercises is advised?
Exercise has 4 aims. Aim number 1 is to get strength. Aim number 2 is to keep our heart and lungs fit. Aim number 3 is to maintain suppleness of the body, so that the body can keep its balance and develop speed. And number 4, develop endurance, so that we can work at a certain pace for a long period of time. Each of these 4 aims requires different kind of exercises, and there is no one exercise which can fulfill all the 4 aims. For example, if you want to build strength, then you must do exercise against resistance. These exercises are like dumbbells or weightlifting or Indian gymnastics, which are helpful in building strength. If you want to keep cardiorespiratory fitness, then you must do what are termed as dynamic exercises, meaning thereby large group of muscles, like muscles of the back, muscles of the thigh, muscles of the shoulder and arm, keep on contracting and relaxing alternately, and in that process they increase the pulse rate. So, to know whether you have done effective exercise, there is a simple calculation. All that you have to do is to remember the figure 220, and you say 220 minus your age, whatever figure you get, 2/3 of that, this should be your pulse rate while you are exercising, and you must maintain this rate for a minimum of 15 minutes every day, at least 5 times a week, preferably all 7 days of the week. Now, some people can do it half an hour at a time, then they can do it 3 times a week, that is okay. How does one do dynamic exercises? By running, as you mentioned, or brisk walking, or playing a game, or swimming, or cycling. These are dynamic exercises. If you want to develop a good balancing and avoid stiffness, then undoubtedly yoga is one of the best exercises, because it enables the body to remain supple. But calisthenics, the kind of exercises we do, PT exercises in the school, are equally good. They can enable us to keep supple. And to do endurance exercise means you do not a very high level of exercise, but a slow walk, but that you will need to do for a long time. If a person is doing a slow walk, he must walk at least 1.5 hours, then only he has some kind of a effective exercise. But if you want to protect your heart, then the second type of exercise is absolutely mandatory. That is, you must have an exercise which will increase your pulse rate to 220 minus your age, 2/3 of that, and maintain for at least 15 minutes every day. A really brisk walk or a short run, jogging, cycling, swimming, these are the ones which must be included in that.
Dr. Sardesai, we have covered a large territory today, but as I know, you have been writing extensively about the subject. Could you tell us quickly 2 or 3 do's and 2 or 3 don'ts for maintaining a healthy heart, or in other words, what is the secrets of success to keeping a healthy heart?
Yes, I think the 3 most important do's a person must do to keep his heart well. One is to maintain good diet, meaning thereby eat less, eat small feeds, eat more frequently, and see to it that you avoid articles which are very rich in cholesterol and not too much of salt or sugar either. Do regular exercise, and absolutely mandatory that you include 2 or 3 kinds of exercise. You can do yoga, you can do Surya Namaskar, and you can also go for a brisk walk, or you can go to a gym and exercise 3 times a week. The remaining 3 times a week you can go for a long walk. This kind of an exercise would be very helpful. Never ever smoke, or in fact do not even sit by the side of a person who is smoking, because cigarette smoke is undoubtedly the worst offender as far as the heart is concerned. Get yourself periodically checked, because high blood pressure, which is a very great offender for heart disease, is often very silent. The person has absolutely no symptoms, and so unless you are periodically checked, if you are absolutely healthy, once a year, and if you have any problems whenever any symptom comes, and your blood pressure must be checked, and see to it that whatever is your age, the pressure is less than 135 over 85 plus minus 5. In the past, people believed that as we age, our blood pressure could be high. That is no more true. Our pressure, whatever is the age, must be less than 135/85 plus minus 5 is the permitted. Also, periodically have your heart checked, because sometimes you can get a silent problem in the heart which you may not know, and before you undertake your exercises you must have yourself checked to see that in an enthusiasm for working too much exercise you are not putting too much strain on the heart.
Well, viewers, as I mentioned earlier, we have covered a vast territory today on matters of the heart, and I am sure you will agree with me that we are that much more knowledgeable today at the end of this session. Dr. Sardesai, on behalf of thousands of viewers, may I convey to you a heartfelt appreciation for your observations and insights into the questions of matters of the heart. Thank you very much.
And I am grateful to you.